Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelchenko, former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I am the co founder and CEO of Laborless, an immigration tech company that automates H 1B and PERM compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, a digital marketing agency that is focused on the immigration and global mobility community, and of course, which brings you this show. Today is an incredibly special episode for a number of reasons, but the biggest reason is it is episode number 151. And our guest today is Dan Mishin, who is the CEO and founder of Manifest, Manifest Law. And also, we'll get to talking about Manifest OS and a little bit of sort of the background and the technology that underpins the Manifest law firm. This is really exciting because Manifest is, arguably one of the hottest immigration law firms, and frankly, just law firms on the market. Dan has, been able to not just reinvent what the immigration industry is kind of expecting out of an immigration law firm, but bring in a venture capital and outside capital. We'll discuss what that looks like. We'll talk about, how Manifest started and how, where they're going and sort of how they're looking at growth and how they're looking at the immigration industry in general. So I'm super excited for this episode. Before we jump into that, I want to say thank you to a new friend and supporter of the show, E-Immigration by Serenade. So E-Immigration by Serenade, for people who don't know, is an immigration tech company that has been around for over 30 years now. While other immigration, tech companies have consolidated and some have been acquired by, private equity or other firms, E-Immigration has been family owned for the 30 plus years that they've been, in business. And, they've built incredibly smart tech. They have AI assisted intakes, automated case prep, case tracking that keeps deadlines visible across the entire law firm docket. And when law firms switch to immigration, they have reported up to 3 times growth and faster than the industry average. So do check them out. They're based partially in New York, which is awesome because that's where I'm based as well. They're a wonderful team, and I know them personally. Check them out. If you book a demo through immigration, they will donate $25 to Mobile Pathways, which is actually an immigration tech nonprofit organization that I'm part of as well. So that's amazing for them. And then, of course, if you sign up with them, you will get your first month for free. So thank you, E-Immigration, for supporting the show, and I'm excited to be a partner with you. And without further ado, Dan, I'm super excited to have you as a guest. Thank you for being part of the show, and it is wonderful to see you.
So good to see you, man. Long time no see. How's life?
I know it's great. It's great, and it's crazy because we met a couple years ago. Although arguably we probably met in Ukraine when we were both kids. Actually,
Probably.
no. I think
I
I
remember
left.
you from when I was 3 years old. You
Yeah,
were already like doing US visas for people.
right, exactly. Actually, no. So I left in 1990, and
Right.
you were not born
I,
yet.
I, I was born in '92, so not a lot of
92. All right,
overlap
damn it.
right
We
there.
we we
Almost.
missed each other in Ukraine. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited to discuss obviously Manifest, but really also you and your story. That's what I really love about this show. I think the headlines are always made by the businesses that we build. But I think that the underpinning of the success of those businesses is the founders, and it's their motivations, their drives, their reasons. So I'm excited to have you and to talk to you about it. So before we jump into all of the really cool stuff about Manifest, the idea here is to get to know the guests. So you were born in Ukraine. You're born in Crimea, which unfortunately right now is a disputed territory. We won't get into the politics of the war. That could be another podcast because I have family in Ukraine still as well. But you grew up there. So can you talk a little bit about? I mean, this is just after the Soviet Union fell. Ukraine is kind of along with the other countries, a newly independent nation. What was it like for you? I mean, as a kid, I mean, were you kind of studying a lot? Were you running around looking for trouble and coming up with ideas? Like, well, what do you remember from kind of early life?
It's so interesting. So I think because in early '90s the entire system that dominated that part of the world collapsed after 70 years. There was a massive vacuum, and I would say that the place was extreme levels of freedom,
Hmm.
not a lot of law, not a lot of regulation. not a lot of water, and a lot of just it was like a wild west in so many different ways. People did whatever they wanted to do. Like the entire system collapsed after so many
Hmm.
years, and growing up, it was the place was just like an absolutely incredible place to grow up. It was a wonderful childhood. People imagine post-Soviet Union countries to be this like grim gray weird thing with like very
Yeah.
dramatic music on background coming from American movies, but it was not like that. It was
Yeah.
amazing. I had a lot of good friends, and we would always go and swim in the Black Sea with my parents and do some
Amazing.
barbecues, and it was a very happy childhood, and I was a very happy kid. I was very ambitious from very young age. I was very hungry, very curious, very driven. I started experimenting slash causing trouble since very young age. When I was 7, like I was like, hey, like I walked into my older brother's bedroom and I saw how he has basically a collection of coins, antique coins. So I was like, well, what is this thing? That looks interesting. So I started flipping through his coins collection, and then I took all his coins collection that he was collecting for whatever 5 years to the flea market and sold them for $1. And I came back home and I'm like, I made $1, like great thing. And the entire family was devastated. My brother was devastated, and everyone was like, "You're an idiot! Like, why would you have done this?" It was like that. It was also early entrepreneurial journey starting in a very young age, resulting in me launching somewhat of a real business at the age of 11.
Hmm.
And complete coincidence. I've shared that story a couple times already, but at the age of 11, my mom and I took all the savings that the family had growing up, and we went to Europe because my mom always wanted me to see the West,
Mm.
the so-called West. And we went to Germany, and I saw this incredible different world. I went to IKEA for the first time, and I was like, "What is this thing? Why do they have 3 little pencils sitting right
Yeah.
there? Like, why is something free? Like, you don't get free
Mm.
stuff in Ukraine. Like, this is not normal." And just seeing a very different society that operates in a very different way was very interesting and resulted in me actually launching a business as soon as I got back to Ukraine.
So, the business that you launched. Let me ask you this before we jump into that. I mean, in order for you to, it sounds like, yeah, you had these ideas and you kind of went for it, which means that you had the confidence in a way. I mean, maybe you could say mischief as a kid, like a 7-year-old, but that has to stem from a place of confidence where you know that the decision that you're taking has to have some value, some merit to it. Did you, just out of curiosity, like, did you see business owners in your family or neighbors or anything like that? Maybe it was something that was just in the ethos. I'm curious where that comes from, and I partly ask this also as a child of Soviet immigrants in a sense, because for us it was go to school, you have to study something to be an engineer or whatever the case may be, a doctor or a lawyer in my case. So it was like study, 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 study. Education will be the thing that will set you free, for in a sense. Did you have that at all, or were you more kind of supported in the just freedom of like try stuff, go figure some stuff out?
That's interesting. My mom is very entrepreneurial, not by nature, but uh, because of circumstances, I would say. She was a school teacher in Soviet Union, and then Soviet Union collapses, and within a matter of minutes, all the family savings are gone.
Mm.
My family was saving money for 20 years, and then the currency turned from a Soviet ruble that had some value and some buying power to Ukrainian hryvnia that had no buying power at that time, and the inflation skyrocketed and the whole thing.
Hmm.
And in order to provide, my mom just like started doing all kinds of stuff. She became a tour guide. As the first Western tourists were coming into Ukraine, she would take them to different battlefield tours and history tours. She was both a historian and she spoke good English. And then I remember her always studying. She was always studying. She was always working. Like, she had the incredible work ethic. She would work 16, 18-hour days. And like my most kind of like my one of my most clear memories from childhood is my mom studying in the living room, preparing for the next tour that she's going to conduct.
Mm,
So mom is very entrepreneurial, and she always encouraged me to try things and take risk. And it's a two-sided coin. On one hand, I was provided crazy amounts of freedom. I'm not sure I could be a father that would provide so much freedom to my kids.
yeah.
It was borderline like go and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
On one hand, it was like that. So the benefit was you get to try things, and you kind of see the world as a safe place in a lot of ways, because
Hmm.
you're like, yeah, like everything is okay to do. You can go and try whatever you want to try. On the other hand, of course, like with my kids, I would probably want a little bit more structure. And like I skipped a lot of phases of life. I'm a bit of a Benjamin Button situation, where like I skipped the middle school because I started a company and I was building a company and I dropped out of middle school. And like, would I allow my kids to drop out of middle school?
Right.
Would I support them in that? I don't know. I'm not sure. And then I skipped the high school, and then I skipped the university, and I was living the life of an adult, providing for the family at the age of 16, 17, making money, coming back from work, sometimes going to a bar and getting a drink. So it was like a weird kind of like a weird situation.
Yeah.
And like I would probably say that I would want my kids to be to live through life, to live through all phases of life.
Hmm.
Because if you skip university, probably you skip a bunch of social interactions to
Sure.
form you as a human.
Yeah. So let's talk about, the business. So you're 11 years old, you're in Germany with your mom. And the story goes that you stayed at a hostel and you did you love the experience? I mean, because you obviously came back to Ukraine and effectively started that business out of
Yes.
your grandmother's apartment. So
Yes.
did you feel like, this was something, yeah. How did you come to this conclusion as an 11-year-old to say, we need to bring this back to Ukraine and we should be the ones to do it?
It's interesting. I think, well, first of all, how did we end up in the hostel? It's not like we've known about it.
Right.
That was not a thing in Ukraine. So we ended up there by accident. We got robbed on the last day in Berlin, right on the
Oh
train
no.
station as we were boarding the train. So all the savings are gone, all the money is gone, all the tickets are gone. So we can't even go back home. And somewhere deep in her purse, my mom finds a 20 euro bill, and that's all we have. So we end up staying in the backpacker hostel in the outskirts of Berlin with a bunch of 22-year-olds. We get there, my mom goes immediately to sleep, and I'm sitting in like a living room, like typically hostels have this like living room area where everybody's just hanging out, like a social area.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting there and observing and looking at like 20-year-old boys and girls being extremely happy, smiling all the time, cracking jokes, drinking cheap beer. Everybody looked so happy, and it felt so cosmopolitan. They were of different ethnicities, different backgrounds, spoke different languages, and that was just something so exciting about it. And I was like, I want that. I really want that. So we finally get the transfer by Western Union from my dad. My dad, like, how it used to take like 24 hours to get the money or some stuff. So we get the money, we're on the train, and I remember sitting by the window of the train, because the train would take whatever 3 days to get from Berlin to Ukraine. And I remember sitting by the window and having a notepad and having my little IKEA pencil and writing down my resolutions after the trip. And my resolution was, number one was, I wanted to learn English, because I realized that this is a key to meeting great people. This is a key to living a full life. That was like the first resolution. And the second resolution is like, hey, I should just open a hostel so all these cool people come and hang out with me. So I got back to my hometown in Ukraine, the city of Sevastopol, which 99% of the people in the West before the war have never even heard about. So that was just not a thing. And I just randomly convinced my grandma to move out of her apartment with my parents, so I
Yeah.
could then go ahead and launch a backpacker hostel, and converted her two-bedroom Soviet-style apartment into the
Mm.
first backpacker hostel in Ukraine. And I remember learning marketing, which is like, how do you like I opened it. Where are the clients? Like, how are they supposed to learn?
Right.
Well, they're supposed to learn about this because I need to do promotion now. So how do I do promotion? Well, I went on Airbnb, which just launched. It was like
Mhm.
literally like right around the same time that it was not even Airbnb actually. It was Craigslist. I went on
Craigslist.
Craigslist
Yeah.
and I posted it on Craigslist and I posted it on booking.com. And this was the first property to go live in Crimea on booking.com. and like
Hmm.
nobody has ever done this. So I figured that part out. And then I post it, and within 10 minutes, somebody makes a reservation. I'm like, wow,
Wow.
this is so interesting. And that's just how it started. And people started coming by, and they became my friends. Every guest became my friend. We would
Right.
go and hang out together, and like hike together, and go to museums together. And that propelled the sort of English learning curve, and that just kind of became my life for the next 12 years as I was building that company into a fairly sizable business.
And so the idea there was this company started to grow, and it sounds like your parents effectively said, "Okay, well, here you can forego the normal route of going to school, I guess, and or at least going to school traditional way, and start to grow this business." What were the next steps? Because you obviously took that business from just your grandmother's apartment to one of the biggest in the region. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, there's so many things to talk about, but because this is your first business, I want to focus on a little bit
Sure,
more,
yeah, of course.
because I think this is where you effectively cut your teeth. I mean, you learned so much through this process.
Every company is a reflection of its founder, and my 11-year-old version didn't know anything at all. Like complete level of ignorance, lack of understanding of any risks, lack of a. I probably couldn't even spell the word risk at that time. Like it was just fearlessness, not because of being actually fearless, but because you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And me at 16 running the same company was a very different version of the company. As I was going through my teenage maturity, and I was
Right.
rebellious, and like I was a horrible boss. I was like always angry with everyone, and I would like constantly shout at people, and I was just like not a good person. And then like at 19, raising first outside capital, and like convincing two bankers to invest $3 or $4 million into that business, taking in outside capital, um, being going to important business meetings, creating business plans, figuring out Excel, understanding how to plan, learning everything because I didn't know anything,
Hmm.
um, and making the first money, and then buying a yellow Porsche and being just a complete jerk, like going to nightclubs and wasting my life for a little bit and going through that phase, and then maturing and getting into a long-term relationship with my partner at 22, and like building an actual business and thinking about the business from the first principles. And it was a very operationally heavy business.
Hmm.
65,000 tickets per year, 3,500 guests staying every night across 13 time zones. So many
Wow.
things could go wrong. Raising $100 million private equity transaction into that business, and then like being like this guy who just raised a lot of money. And it was a very it was a very volatile path. It was not a like straight to the right kind of like line. It was just it was like everything, the good, the
Hmm.
bad, the ugly, running out of money and sleeping in my car for 3 months because I couldn't afford anything else, in between, being close to homeless and then raising money like a week later. It was just a
Right.
total roller coaster.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that chaos is the. I was just talking about that the other day, yesterday actually. I think that's something that founders thrive on. I mean, I love having chaos. It hasn't been the swings haven't been quite that high for me, but at least not yet. But still the day to day is just you don't know what's going to happen, and I love that. I love that because I feel that every day is an adventure. I feel like every day is a game to win or a level to conquer or whatever you want to, however you want to look at it. So how did you end up exiting or concluding that business? Because I know obviously then you moved on to other ventures, but you're a teenager effectively or a very young adult. You've now gone through these waves, but you've built this massive business. How did you? What was the kind of closing event for that?
Yeah, and just to close the loop on what you just said, and like you're going through this. All of us in the immigration world are going through this every day now because it is a roller coaster. The policy changes so fast. And I remember when I was going through my own immigration, people were like, my lawyer was like, "Hey, in this administration, this is how it
Mm,
works." And I was like, "What does politics have to do with like my visa?" And I literally couldn't comprehend it when I was going through an
mm,
O1. Um, and I understand it today so well that it is just a total roller coaster. So you are going through a roller coaster. I'm going through a roller coaster. All of us are doing this every
mhm.
single day. Yeah, sorry, just a slight
Yeah,
deviation.
yeah.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, the company ultimately, the hostel company, became a fairly large business. There was some acquirers who were interested, and I was extremely burned out. I didn't want to do this at all anymore. I lost appetite for life completely because I was just so exhausted after like a 10-year ride. I was extremely obese. I was living unhealthy. I was 280 pounds. I was living unhealthy. My diet was Red Bulls and Snicker bars all day, every day. And I was just not in a good place. And I was like, is there a life outside of building
Mm,
companies? Like, what would that look like?
mm,
So I had a partner in that business. That partner ran the largest restaurant chain in Russia at that time, and he was interested in acquiring my stake at the business. There were a couple other buyers, and ultimately I sold it to him, and I exited the business. And for the first, I remember that the transaction closed on December 24th, whatever year that was. And I remember my flight was on December 24th, 9 p.m., and the transaction closed at 3 p.m. And I remember the feeling of actually being free from what you built,
mm,
where I remember sleeping without worrying at all
mm.
for the first time since being a teenager. And it was such an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like there's a whole life outside of building companies. And then a couple months later, you've enjoyed the good sleep, you caught up on it, you ate well, maybe you traveled a little bit, and then you're like, huh, okay, I feel like I'm missing something now. And
Right.
you miss the feeling of building, you miss the feeling of creation, you miss the feeling of creating something from nothing. We as entrepreneurs, you, me, we have ability to create something from nothing,
Mhm.
create value out of thin air, and that's valuable. And that's why we that's why we do what we do.
Exactly. Yeah, you get antsy. I mean, I can't imagine having nothing to do. You know what I mean? Or maybe for too long. I guess like a break is something that everybody needs. So you took this break, you exited the business, presumably you're obviously you were sharing that after the Soviet Union fell and your family was using its savings to go to Europe and then you got robbed. I mean, all of this sort of like, it's actually
Serendipity.
amazing. And it's amazing that your family valued exposure for you to the world, even in a moment where it sounds like they couldn't easily afford it, or maybe they
Yes.
couldn't really almost afford it at all. And
No.
so it sounds like it's incredible that you're able to do that and effectively, not just pay them back, but hopefully pay them back in spades. And you were able to take care of the family yourself at that point. Um, and you started to feel antsy. What was the next thing that you did when you said, you know what, I think I want to get back into building something?
I knew I wanted to be in America.
Mm,
And the reason I knew I wanted to be in America was because growing up, America was this ultimate playground for the best in the world. And I remember falling in love with America without ever being here as a child. Well, maybe it had to do with the fact that most of the meat that we have ever had was from the American humanitarian aid.
mm,
So growing up, I remember this massive aluminum canisters with like beef stuck there, and it was like American. And I remember it had a like a label that said
mm.
American aid, and that was the meat that we ate when I was growing up in
Interesting.
Ukraine. That was one recollection. The second recollection was for the first time when I was like 10 or 11. I remember how American fleet came to my hometown in Sevastopol, and how we had the American Marines walking in the city, wearing these beautiful white uniforms in the city. That was quite gray actually. And the thing that shocked me the most, number one thing that shocked me about them, was the fact that they had white socks.
Mm.
I could not believe how impractical it is to wear white socks. It just didn't make any sense. Why would
Yeah.
you do that? And I
Yeah.
was so weirdly attracted to the idea of ever, becoming so successful that I could have white socks, that it kind of changed my trajectory in so many different ways.
Mm,
So I knew I wanted to be here since I was a kid, and I just said, why not now? I'm still young. I'm ambitious. I'm hungry. And I came to the US with an idea to start a company here. And at a later point, I got conviction that I should do this, and I started a company called June Homes in residential technology space, like real estate
Mhm.
technology space. And I kept building that company for 8 years before starting Manifest. The company was um, grew to a fairly large size. It was essentially a network of flexible apartments for rent
Mhm.
across nation, powered by technology with dynamic pricing and dynamic distribution.
So I want to ask you about that because if you think about it, I mean, I don't know if you did this consciously or subconsciously. Your first business was a hostel, effectively, right? Business, and then eventually, let's call it in the hospitality space,
Right.
right? But it was providing a home for people at a very temporary clip.
Yes.
Your second business is very much in the same industry, slightly different. Did you think about that consciously and say, okay, what do I know well, and what other problems do I want to solve in this industry? Or did it just sort of come to you without you making those connections with your prior business, your prior network, et cetera?
A little bit of both. My standard recipe for starting a company, and at this point it's kind of standardized
Yeah.
of when I start a company, is when I cannot stop thinking about it for an extended period of time. That's the
Mm.
signal that like I need to do this. And I came to the US and I tried to rent my first apartment. And I remember touring apartments in New York City, and you live in New York, you know how brutal it is, like on the real estate side. And I remember how like every single broker was rejecting me. And I was like, what the hell? Like I'm already sort of somewhat successful, and like I had some level of like money in the bank, and I couldn't believe how small I felt trying to rent an
Mm.
apartment in New York. And I was like, why? Like, what is this? Why is it so hard? And I realized that there is a whole population of millions and millions of people who don't have US credit score, who are trying to rent apartments here, and that they need to be serviced somehow, and that there is a whole market here. So that was the entry point, part one. And part two, I was like, I'm already moving to a new country. I don't really know anyone. I knew one
Right.
person here when I moved, literally one person. And I came here with no network. Nobody knew me. Nobody cared about me. And I was like, okay, how do I reduce the number of unknowns? At least I can be in the same industry somewhat.
Yeah. It's interesting because, well, I'm lucky because after law school, I lived in DC as an attorney, and then I moved home and literally lived at home. So believe it or not, I never had to deal with them. And I've actually also never lived in Manhattan. I've only lived in Brooklyn and Queens, which I used to take pride in, and now I kind of wish I lived at least for maybe I still will at some point in the city.
Well, what,
Um,
what makes you say that?
I don't know. There's just more happening. I mean, there's no
Uh-huh.
question about it that there's much more. Yeah, I walk outside and I say hi to the older folks I
Yeah.
love that in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
But that's on a regular day when I get to feel like I live in a neighborhood. But on days where I want to go out or an evening or something,
Yeah.
I got to get on the train. And so sometimes it's nice to
Right.
or a cab or an Uber.
I want to
But
move to Queens. Do you want to trade apartments?
let's trade. We'll do. I think we both have some exposed brick in our apartment, so
We definitely do.
it'll feel
Definitely do.
good. So yeah, I love that, and I think the idea of leveraging your skills and your professional network, because I imagine that you had people who knew about this industry, even if it's not in America, because you didn't know people in America, you must have
Right.
known somebody in some other space. And the reason I ask this is because look, this show was started for me. This show was something I couldn't stop thinking about because I kept listening to other podcasts that never touched on immigration, because why would they? It's not an industry that
Right.
was quote unquote sexy.
Right.
But we had so many incredible entrepreneurs, and I felt that people in our industry, global mobility more broadly, if they're building something, they should have at least some access to knowledge and wisdom from other people who have done it before them. So, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And obviously during COVID, when everyone was at home, I said, you know what, let's do it. Much less capital intensive to start a podcast than a whole company, but conceptually, it's sort of the same. So you started June Homes, and June Homes effectively was what, like short-term rentals for professional travelers, or for anybody who, wants to come and like live in New York or anywhere eventually around the country as a regular person.
Yeah. I'll take that. I'll answer that in a second. But do you know what's interesting? So You started the podcast because you wanted to service this community, right? You were like driven by the idea of like, I want to help this community because I'm a part of this community, and like I want to do some sort of service for them. And I think this is actually the single best motivation to do anything in life. Just servicing other people. It gives you like a fundamental level of fulfillment. And like I think that's like I've always felt that about you. The comedy show that you threw in San Diego, that was like you servicing your community. And for me, this evolved into that as well. Initially I started the company because I had motivation to like June Homes started because I had my own pain point, and then I wanted to service the community of people like Manifest started because I had a pain point going through immigration, and I wanted to service the community of people through immigration. I was thinking more about individuals at that time, less so about the corporate mobility managers. But after meeting a couple of, I don't know, 3, 4, 500 people who actually do the work and support for professionals from inside the company, my observations were that this is some of the kindest people I've ever met in my life.
Hmm.
They have big hearts, and a lot of them do this not because of the monetary value or because it's the single highest paid job, but because they actually get fulfillment from helping people to go through the process.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about this market, and that's why I'm like so anti private equity entering this market, because I don't want the soul to leave this market. It's too sacred, you know what I mean? It's too sacred for lawyers, it's too sacred for mobility managers. That's why I think it's very important that only people that have the right heart are doing this for the right reasons.
So let's skip ahead a little bit and jump on that. I mean, people can go and read all about June Homes, separately. You obviously built that into a business. I think it merged with another company, if I did my research right. Right. And
Yes. Sorry. Happy to give it
no,
TLDR. I
no,
know I got deviated. I was just curious. I just remembered the comedy show in San
yeah.
Diego, and I was just like, I just wanted to say this because like
Yeah, no,
that was
no, no,
really
no.
cool.
It's not a problem. Let's like if you want to give the TLDR on June Homes, just so that people who are watching and listening can know,
Definitely.
and then yeah.
The TLDR is basically the company was providing a flexible. The company could take any apartment in any major city and allow anyone to rent that apartment with any credit score, with any budget, on flexible leases, anywhere between 1 to 12 months. Mostly operating in the budget segment and mostly targeting individuals versus companies. At its peak, we had about 3,500 units and about $1.5 billion of real estate that we operated nationally. 250 employees, really good business. Just as operationally complex as hostels. And ultimately, I stepped down. But at some point, I was like, that's not where my heart is anymore. And I transitioned away from the CEO role. A wonderful guy who was my chief of staff, who was then COO, stepped in and ran the company for 2 years. And then we sold the company and we merged it with another business in the space. And to combine the combined entity is the largest flexible living company. I think actually might be in the world at this point,
Amazing.
with thousands and thousands of apartments in the US.
And a question, because I think this will be a nice way to transition into the manifest, story. During this time, while you were growing June Homes, running June Homes, working on, partnerships, etc., you were going through your own immigration process, right?
Was
Individually.
Yep.
And you were also hiring foreign nationals for
Yes.
June Homes. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about first your journey? Like what was your experience? We don't have to go too deep into it, but what was your sort of, your feelings around the immigration process? And then maybe separately, if you can comment on the flip side when you were a petitioner for other foreign nationals coming into work in the US.
Yeah. Well, my own experience was I started with an O1 and then I got into an EB1 and then became a citizen. And as I was going through the process myself, I remember how I had this law firm, a very boutique law firm in New York, that where I've met the founder, and the founder was in a beautiful redwood office with very fancy chairs. And the founder sold me so well, and I was so excited to get going. And after he sold me, I've never seen him again, because I was dealing with the paralegal. The paralegal was only doing everything by phone. And then at one point, I got and the case got delayed, and it took extra 3, 4, 5 months compared to what it was originally quoted. And I remember becoming curious about why is it taking so long, and what is, it's important for me. Like, I need to solve it. So I drove up to New Jersey to meet with this paralegal, and I walked into her office, and I saw how she has floor to ceiling stacks of paper everywhere, and she's just overloaded, and she sits in a windowless office. Um, and she's a good heart. She wants to do this, but she's just so stretched thin
Mhm.
because she gets 10% of the pay of the law firm while doing 99% of the work of the law firm. And that just didn't feel right. That was just not the right. That's just, humans are not supposed to do manual labor. We as humans are supposed to do creative work and socialize with each other. That's what our role is as humanity, and building creative ideas. If somebody is filling the same form over and over and over and over again every single day from morning till deep night, that's not right. That's not how humanity should operate. And that was the first data point. The second data point was we were using large law firms, some of the largest law firms in the immigration space, and we lost so many candidates because things were just taking way too long.
Mhm.
And I remember we really wanted to hire this incredible engineer. The engineer required visa sponsorship. The engineer was ready to get going, and then the engineer has provided all the documents to the law firm, and 90 days later there was zero progress on the case. And I was like, why? Like, that's not that hard. Like, I always dig to the first principles to understand what is the actual work that goes into this. And I was like, show me what is the form that we need to complete. Show me what is the actual work that the lawyer needs to do. And then 90 days after the case was delayed, because I really wanted to hire that engineer, I just went and did it myself. And I realized that, okay, this is actually not rocket science. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You're completing the form to provide to the government. It shouldn't take 90 days. It should take 9 minutes if you build the right technology. And that was the second data point. And the third data point was just every time I would go to a social event and I would see other immigrants, the number one topic that people would talk about is their immigration status and how their lawyer is delaying them in basically achieving their outcomes. And the problem is not humans that do the work. The problem is the way the system is set up, the way the technology is built. It's not because these people genuinely don't want to help their clients. Attorneys genuinely do. It's just the tech is not there. The systems are not there. The workflows are not there. I mean, I would even argue that the value distribution inside immigration law firm is not right. It doesn't make sense that 90% of value is accumulated among 5 people that own the firm. It needs to be more fair. It needs to be more reflective of how who creates value. And
Mhm.
I got deep in the rabbit hole,
No.
spent a year, researched it, worked as a paralegal myself, figured it out, and then I was like, I gotta build it. I gotta solve this problem. It matters too much. It matters too much on a human level. It matters too much on the societal level. It's a good thing to solve.
I love it. I love that. Um, Before we move on, because now this is where we get into the story of Manifest, I just want to take a very quick pause and just give a thank you to the second sponsor of the show and also a new supporter of the show, a company called Prof Val. Prof Val provides expert online opinion letters, professional plans, and immigration business plans for immigration petitions. So they support EB1, EB2 NIW, H1B, L1s, O1s, E2s, EB5s, and more. And they help immigration lawyers strengthen petitions with research backed documentation prepared for every specific case category and case strategy. In terms of their expert opinion letters, which are really, you had an O1, Dan, and these are really important for O1's expert opinion letters. Their expert opinion letters, when they work on them and provide them, are always signed by qualified U.S.-based experts, and they're designed to help petitioners explain their credentials, their role, their field endeavor, etc. They also prepare, professional plans and immigration business plans to help them to help their clients with businesses and other proposed endeavors. So for any immigration lawyers that need expert opinion letters and or business plans or professional plans for their cases, please reach out to Prof Val. They're awesome. Zach, who is their founder, is a super, super nice guy. If anyone's ever met him, I know, they've only had wonderful things to say. And the nice thing about them is they're offering $75 off for law firms that order a professional plan, a business plan, or an expert opinion letter. So reach out to them using the link in the show notes. And when you do, just say you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show or from Roman for that $75 off. Okay, Dan.
Yes,
By the way, an O1 recipient, you had some kind of expert letter somewhere in your
I did.
petition. So you realize that number one, as an immigrant or somebody who's going through the immigration process, you saw the just level of inefficiency and in some cases level of unfairness that the people who were doing your physical work were experiencing. As a petitioner, as an employer, you saw that the inefficiency is there, but it also resulted in losing candidates. If you're taking too long and another potential employer moves faster, they'll get a great candidate. And then, number three, the idea was that this is just something people continue to talk about. This is a big, it's a widespread issue. So you thought to yourself, I've got my next thing. What did what were the first steps that you took? And I really want to get into what was Manifest initially, because people now know Manifest. It's all over the news. You guys have done an incredible job with marketing and PR, but you started to build this quite slowly on your own,
Yes.
right? To make sure that you're A, doing it right, that B, you're finding the absolute right people to start this with, and then C, that when you do roll out, you raise funds, you go out to the market, you are confident that the thing you are building is now ready to scale. You're not just at the very beginning stages, you've actually built out a really solid foundation. So what was the early Manifest law, before it is what people know of it today?
Well, Manifest originally started with individuals. Our core business was servicing O1, EB1, and EB2 and AW with employees of some of the largest technology companies. And Manifest Law, as a law firm, would help them obtain their immigration statuses. And sorry, one thing that probably is important to explain is that there are two companies. There's Manifest OS and Manifest Law.
Right.
Manifest OS develops technology, hires best-in-class engineers, and these are the types of engineers that historically were impossible to hire inside law firms because they would never join law firms for a variety of reasons. They couldn't get stock options in law firms. They generally preferred to work in technology companies among other great engineers, and the capital that is required to hire this type of talent is usually venture capital, because these people are making $500,000 to $1 million a year.
Right,
They're like
right.
the best engineers in the world.
Right.
So basically, that's Manifest OS. Manifest Law is the law firm powered by Manifest OS, where lawyers are employed that actually practice law. So Manifest Law started with servicing individuals on O1, EB1, EB2, and AW. Best of the best, going after individuals that were applying for those visas that usually worked in large technology companies. Within about a year, we believe we became one of the largest filers of O1, EB1, EB2, and AW in the country, and that created our DNA as on the law firm side to be extremely high touch, extremely white glove, extremely kind of like customer centric. Because again, these are the people who are paying for their own visas by themselves, who have very high expectations, and that essentially created the DNA of like being attorney led, minimal paralegal staffing, maximum technology leverage. Attorney touches every case at any point of time. And essentially, without knowing this, what Manifest Law became is probably the most scaled boutique law firm, where like it retained a lot of the DNA of like what we as individuals love about small boutique law firms that are, human. You know who you're dealing with, who's the person. You can get on the phone with them. You don't have to like go through 4 layers of paralegals to get to a lawyer. You could just message them or call them, and it's just simple, but on scale. And I think historically mobility managers had trade-offs, right, where it's like at some point the program usually becomes so large that you're limited to this like 4 or 5 law firms that can handle the scale. But these 4 or 5 law firms, the trade-off there most of the time is like you're kind of it gets less personal. It becomes a conveyor. You're not talking to a human, and usually the quality of customer service deteriorates with scale. It doesn't improve with scale, it deteriorates with scale. And we realized that there is actually a way to have a boutique level experience on very large scale if you are powered by the right technology. So I guess my answer to the question on like what was Manifest early days, it was a lot of product building, and it was a lot of servicing of like very demanding, high stakes individual.
And so now Manifest has moved on from, you obviously still support a ton of, O1s, EB1s. I see the marketing, on social media and such, but you're also growing the B2B side, right? So you have moved on to, or I should say, added to the original kind of target client this idea that you can also now service companies that have global mobility programs, a June Homes, for example,
Yeah.
right? What sort of how has that transition been, and what are your thoughts on maybe manifest, because I want to take this as an opportunity to learn, well, what makes manifest different. So what are your thoughts on how manifest can support clients that are not just O1 EB1 individuals, but also corporates that have a volume of people, that have policy requirements, et cetera, et cetera?
So today, Manifest Law supports 250 plus corporate immigration programs, ranging from one foreign national to 1,000 foreign nationals, and very soon, actually, much larger programs as well. Something is soon to be announced, actually.
Nice.
But look. Okay, let's take a step back and say, what is wrong with status quo? Why should Manifest exist in the first place? Why not just stick with the current solution? Well, okay, so the root cause of everything is we have poor quality of technology at the foundation, because law firms are not designed to be technology companies. They're not designed to build the best tech. They don't have that expertise. That's not core. The core is to process visas and provide great legal advice. That's what lawyers are great at. And because of that, the way the foundations of these software solutions are often built is a little clunky. It's not set up for scale. It's not set up in like very granular ways. Like the architecture of software, the way it was designed, it was not designed for 2026. It was designed for 1986 in a lot of ways. And because of like poor architecture solutions at the foundational level, what ends up happening is humans have to plug holes that have not been automated. So if you have poor quality of technology, that means you need more manual labor. Because you need more manual labor for a lot of those use cases, you're sort of requested and forced to hire a lot of paralegals to complete the work. You create conveyors where people are pigeonholed into doing rinse and repeat work. My work is to take this piece of paper and put it to this place. My job is to only do perms in this very narrow use case. And you're kind of like doing robotic work with humans instead of actually solving it at the root cause with better technology. And because of that, poor culture, people are not getting compensated the way they should be, because you need a lot of humans to complete the same level of work, and as a result, it takes long. So it's both a workflow problem and a technology problem. It's both. It's not just a technology problem. So that's kind of like that in my opinion is the root cause of everything. If we had the right software at the foundational level, you could hire less people, pay these people better, create better culture, invest in them because each person has more leverage, and create literally an incredible culture that people love and admire. And if you create the best culture where attorneys and paralegals thrive, that propagates to the client experience, because now they're relaxed, they're calm, they're in a good state, they have good work-life balance, they're not putting 80-hour weeks, and they can go and give that love back to the foreign nationals, the employees of those companies, and it's a much better experience. You take lawyers' time from reviewing forms and you give that time back so the lawyer can now provide customer service. It becomes a different experience. Instead of reviewing the same forms over and over and over again to find mistakes, AI can do that with much higher accuracy, and then the lawyer just does one final review. And then you just freed up a lot of lawyers' time. They can have, what if they have a weekly call with their foreign national populations, with the clients that they're servicing every week on the calendar, 15-minute touch base? That would feel so much better. At Manifest, lawyers also send proactive updates every week. Every Friday, 9 a.m., there is an email that goes out to each foreign national employee that says, here, what was the plan for this week? Here's what we've done. Here's what was not done. Here's the plan for next week. It reduces anxiety by 99% because you're just proactive. You're not being chased. You just tell exactly what's happening. And it kind of like, if you solve the tech side and then you bring the best people, because the best people will only join you if you have the best tech, then you can provide like 10 times better experience. And the kind of thing, the kind of ways how we design software is also fundamentally different from how it was designed by any other player in the space. Everything is different. Like, we can go into more specifics and I can explain exactly how, but having the right technology was the key to like solving the ultimate quality of customer experience.
Yeah, so share a little bit about that because I think that's very key to what makes Manifest different, what the value proposition is. And I think people are curious, what is that thing? Obviously, we'll be conscious of time. We could have a separate episode just about the technology, but, what is the thing that makes you guys different in terms of how you've built this, from the perspective of case creation, but also perhaps from the perspective of client support, filing, drafting, etc.
Well, it's really two things. On the technology side, the historical experience has been I'm a foreign national. I was invited to start my case. I receive usually a link to upload my documents to a Google Drive or a Dropbox or some folder, and I usually receive some questionnaire that I complete. Could be a Google form, could be a Word document, a Google document, or an invitation to a portal from one of the third-party softwares. Then I basically provide all the information to provide all the answers to the same questionnaires, upload all my documents. A lawyer goes in, downloads everything, reviews everything one by one, and adds information from the questionnaire to the government form. Okay. Every time a foreign national doesn't understand the question, they ping their lawyer and they ask a follow-up question. That creates a ton of back and forth. Every time a lawyer doesn't respond quickly enough, the foreign national gets frustrated and they're like, "Why are you not responding to me? Like, get back to me within 5 minutes." Let's eliminate it at the root cause. At Manifest, you're a beneficiary, a foreign national going through the experience. You get an invitation to the portal. You have a place that we call a shoebox. You drag and drop all the documents that you think are relevant for your case, and you see sort of sample documents that we request. For each document, you communicate with an AI agent that educates you and says, if it's a birth certificate and it's in another language, provide us a certified translation. Don't know where to get certified translation? Here's 15 different vendors from public sources that you could go to, and you streamline and explain with examples in real time through the agentic AI of exactly what you need from a foreign national to complete their case. And the foreign national can drag and drop things. They can go take their phone, take a bunch of photos, and just send it into the portal. And everything is very illustrative and easy to understand. And you just submit information. Once you've completed that, you click one button. All the information from every single document is automatically extracted. If it was a passport, a birth certificate, a pay stub, an employment agreement, and something else, everything is extracted and automatically pre-populated in the AI canonical knowledge graph. So all the fields are deduplicated, source of truth is validated. And then as a foreign national, I see all of the information that's relevant for my case extracted on one screen within 20 to 30 seconds. And I just confirm it. Pum, 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 pum. Whatever, and you see the AI confidence score, 80, 90, 100%, whatever that is. Once I confirmed it, all the information is automatically, that's it. I'm done as a foreign national. I log out from my portal, put it aside. Lawyer logs in, and the lawyer already sees pre-drafted cover letters, fully built out packets, completed questionnaires, completed government forms. Every single thing is already in one place. All the information is clean. All the information is validated. All the personally identifiable information is mapped to the right place. Any conflicts are automatically flagged for attorney to review. Every time there is an inconsistency between data, a lawyer has a yellow highlighted field that they just confirm that this is correct. Mm-hmm. This is the process that used to take weeks of back and forth because clients would be confused about what does this mean? What's an A number? What's this number? What is the difference between I-797 approval date and the visa stamp date? Why do you need both? People get confused about that stuff. We've eliminated a lot of that work. So for a lawyer, our dream, 5-minute H1B.
It sounds like it's both attractive for the foreign national and the company, but also an attorney. I mean, I know you guys have been hiring. I'm just thinking if, back when I was an attorney, if you told me that I could work at a place like this versus, maybe where I worked, that was, sure, we were using technology at the time and it's not like it was all paper-based, but I'll tell you, the reason I started Laborless was because of all the freaking folders that were sitting, and in some cases you can't get around government requirements, right? I mean, it is what it is. But you want to digitize as much as possible within the bounds of what's legally allowable, right? So, again, to be conscious of time here,
Yeah.
what's the future for you in terms of Manifest? Obviously, you guys are growing. You've been hiring. You've been expanding in terms of now not just doing foreign nationals individually, but also working with corporates. What do you see as the future? Is it more growth? Is it I don't know. Yeah. What are your thoughts on like the next, let's say, 1 to 3 years?
I think the North Star is 100 times better experience for mobility managers, sponsored employees, and attorneys. Um, Dollars and growth and number of accounts and all of that, that's an output, not an input. That's something that just follows if you're doing the right thing. So I'm, as you can see, like I go deep in the weeds because like sorry, I couldn't help myself. I just
Yeah.
went immediately into like product. But like that's just how we go. We're maniacal about like how can we eliminate unnecessary work, how can we eliminate unnecessary stress, how can we bring clarity to compliance, to foreign national tracking, to reporting, to integrations, to all of those things. And by the way, we work with Laborless, and you guys are a very important part of our tech stack, and we're very excited to scale together. And reality is like that's the kind of thing that I care about. I care about doing my life's best work. That's what I really care about. And then if we end up staying at the current scale and nobody ever chooses Manifest as their provider, so be it. I'm still okay with it. And if we become the biggest single law firm in the world, great. But it's not the goal. The goal is just let's build an awesome experience for all the people involved and just make it delightful at every step, at every button, at every click, at every document. Why not send an awesome package with a cool hoodie and something else when the person gets approved? Why not
Yeah.
celebrate it? Like that's what I want.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was practicing, I told my firm at the time, I said, when we send a 797 approval notice, let's send them some stuff with it so that not only
Exactly.
are they happy, but they also, it helps them brand. And I was thinking on a smaller budget. I said, let's send them stickers because if they're engineers, they'll put the stickers on their laptop. And then when they're
Totally.
working, someone's going to say, hey, I need immigration help, but the firm didn't.
But even if it brings zero new clients, who
Right.
cares? You just did a
Yeah.
fun thing that just makes it
Correct.
awesome. Like
Yeah.
we started this Extraordinary Ability Club, which is a club where we have 6,000 foreign nationals that help each other to build up their O1, EB1, and EB2 and IW cases and exchange ideas about different types of evidence. We made $0 on it. That
Hmm.
was never an objective. We just wanted to do a cool thing for the community and see what happens. We started 4 months ago. There was one person. Today there is 6,000 people. We did the
Insane.
same thing for mobility managers. We started Mission by Manifest, a
Yep.
community. The whole purpose was mobility managers meet one time per year at a conference. That's not right. Let's create a community where they can talk to each other whenever they want. And we built it, and now it has 100 plus members. So it's life is not. I don't want to think about life in a transactional fashion. I just want to
Yeah.
do cool stuff.
Totally agree. I want to ask you one last question before I let you jump. Um, what do you want people, again, there's a number of people who can be interested in this, whether it's an individual who needs immigration help, whether it's a company who might want to explore working with you, whether it's somebody who wants to get hired, by you if they're looking for a role. What do you want people to leave with, from this conversation, and where can people sort of find you and the company to reach out?
The company is called Manifest Law. That's the law firm side. If you're an engineer, go to Manifest OS. We're constantly hiring for the best engineers in New York City, especially if you're an AI engineer and you can do great evals. Come work for us. If you're in the immigration space, Manifest Law is constantly looking for new talent. We like to work with people that want to change this market. We like to work with people that are unsatisfied about the status quo. We don't like to work with people that are driven by money and mercenary reasons. We like people who are, you know, who are doing this from the right reasons and from the right motivation. And this company has a heart, and this company chooses very irrational decisions very frequently that look like stupid from the outside, but we're doing it because we just want to do good work for the community. And if you feel that way, we're hiring mobility managers in house. We're hiring incredible attorneys in house, and we just want to work with cool people and do cool stuff. That's really it.
Love it. Dan, thank you so much. We probably could have gone another hour, but it's a Friday afternoon. We do have to get back. We have to let you get back to work. Super appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story. There were so many comments that we just, I wanted to be conscious of time. I didn't bring up, but I think it's inspiring to see what you've done so far. And I
Thanks.
think the energy is contagious in terms of, you're not coming into this space out of nowhere because you heard someone say immigration is, needs disruption. You've lived this both as an individual and as a, petitioner on the employment
Yep.
side. So I think that's really special. So I'm excited to continue to follow, you and the company's growth, excited to, work with you, whether it's laborless or otherwise. And I hope that everyone goes and follows you and the company on across social media. And we'll have you back on the show at some point to talk about all the new cool stuff that comes up. So
Would love
appreciate
to.
you, man, and thank you. Best of
Absolutely.
luck.
Thank you so much, brother. Honestly, and just thank you for everything that you're doing for this market. You're a very important person for this
Thank you.
industry, and I really appreciate everything that you do.
I try my best. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, it's good seeing you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
What an amazing conversation. We had so many comments that I didn't have a chance to bring up, but just to bring them up here, we had a LinkedIn user. I couldn't see some of the names here because there were, I think it's privacy settings on people's accounts. Exciting chat, a revolutionary product in the making. Someone else said, so inspiring. Enrique says, what a great story. We have some claps. We have someone says, organized chaos is the name of the global mobility game. I totally agree here. Jeff Joseph, who is also recently at Manifest, says, thanks for your leadership and for amplifying these important messages. Thank you, Jeff. We have Bruna saying, immigrants know how difficult and frustrating the U.S. process can be. It's important to have leaders that have gone through the experience. I totally agree. We have Melissa saying, fantastic episode. Ferzine talking about one of the biggest adjustments is realizing the credit history is important. Financial success. So, there's even more challenges, once you move to the US, what are the other issues that you experience? So thank you all so much. I do want to say a massive thank you once again to eImmigration for supporting the show, again, as the main sponsor of this episode. Again, we've talked today about how important it is to have people and humans who actually care about the work supporting you. eImmigration has been a family-based business and family-run, and still is, for over 30 years. When you call them, you actually talk to a real person who, can help you as an immigration law firm. So they have smart tech, AI-assisted intakes, automated case tracking and form preparation, and it keeps all of your deadlines visible across your entire docket. And as I mentioned earlier, the firms that use them grow 3 times faster than the industry average. So please check them out at eimmigration.com. If you visit eimmigration.com/GMI and you book a demo, first of all, they donate $25 to Mobile Pathways, which is an amazing nonprofit in the industry that I'm a part of. And then second of all, if you sign up with them, you get your first month for free. So huge thank you to eImmigration by Serenade for the show sponsorship. And thank you all so much for watching, for supporting, for your comments. Have a great and wonderful weekend. Be safe and peace out.